Good Monday. This is Jay Brew, co-chairman of Seafried and Brew. Well, we've been going through a number of different community bank business models over the past number of webcasts. If you remember, we examined what a top 15th percentile bank is based upon the Seafried and Brew risk-reward index. Then we had a bank that just needed a tap to get themselves up into the top 15th percentile. We then also looked at a peer group, the national benchmark group that we use of community banks, and when we looked at that benchmark, what did it take strategically to move that institution up into the top 15th percentile? So today what we're going to do is that we're going to actually look at our final bank, which is an underperforming institution. Does this mean because they're underperforming based upon a total reward of 31.7, which would be in that lower than average type of reward? Interestingly enough, this bank has a higher risk profile at 52.5. So on an overall basis, we would rank this bank in the 27th percentile of all community banks in the country. Is it a situation where a bank like this could never get up into the top 15th percentile? And it comes down to, one, is there a strategy that could move this bank into higher performance? Two, is it attainable? Because that is so very important when you look at these strategies. They can't be pie in the sky, but they need to be attainable for that particular institution. And that's what we try to do in our strategic planning process at Seafried and Brew, is to sit there and determine what is attainable for a particular community bank, where they may be located, what the management and board style is. But definitely when you have a situation of a higher level of risk and a low level of reward, one could question if the risk-reward profile is in balance. So that would be one consideration within the strategic planning piece. So when we look at overall ROA for this bank, they're in the 23rd percentile. ROE in the 28th percentile. So what can we do to start to lift this up? Would it be attainable for this bank to get into a higher performance or even into that top 15th percentile group? So what we've been doing is looking at net interest margin. Interestingly enough, their net interest margin is in the 58th percentile, just on the cusp of being higher performing. So that immediately tells us there's an attainability from a standpoint of net interest income to make this bank higher performing. So I go to cash type deposits, and we look at cash type deposits have had a little bit of an increase, getting up to right around 54% in terms of total deposits. If we remember from looking at those S&B top 15th percentile banks, is that overall that we need to be in more like the 70% type level. So for a bank like this to get up into the 70% will take some time. When we look at it, they can put into strategies in place, etc. I would sit there and judge that this is a 3 to 5 year process to get this bank up into that 70th percentile. But once again, a positive is this net interest margin, that it will push that net interest margin into the higher performance category because it's almost there already. Because we can look at overall cost of interest-bearing deposits as their cash type deposits have grown, have declined in here in terms of cost, which is an important element, especially when we plan on what happens when interest rates on the shorter end of the curve start to head up. This also would reduce risk by increasing cash type deposits, because when we look at it, it's going to decrease interest rate risk and liquidity risk. So it should modify to some degree that higher risk position, but also increase overall net interest income, which of course will increase the bank's overall performance. We go to tax burden. Not only are they having a low level of earnings, but look at this in terms of being in the 85th percentile, almost in the red zone of being in that top group of top taxpayers in the country. So this is a case where we want to become more tax efficient, and as we've talked about before, this once again strategically is a 3-year process to at least bring us back into some kind of better tax position. So that gives us the sense that the bank can make progress not only in terms of increasing net interest margin, but now in terms of increasing tax efficiency. You can see it does move the needle up to the 31st percentile in ROA and the 40th percentile in ROE. Once again, it's not just one thing you have to look at strategically, but multiple things. Another one that sticks out for this particular bank, you can see they're in the 85th percentile for net overhead. So when we look at that, their net overhead in here is approximately 3.23%. Very high net overhead compared to the national average. So if we set a 5-year goal, once again, for a bank like this, they need a longer time period to hit some of these goals. In a 5-year time period, I would lay out as being attainable is that we bring that net overhead down to our top 15th percentile, 1.8%. And this really moves the needle. We move up to in the 91st percentile for ROA, 95th percentile for ROE. And it is possible, but this would take a concerted effort to move from low performance into higher performance and even into that top 15th percentile performance. But what it comes down to is laying out a very specific strategic plan. One of the things that we do here at Seafried and Brew is we use our strategic planning model, which lays out the bank's balance sheet and income statement out 3, 5, and 10 years so that one can see the progression of those goals you want to hit. This isn't a budget, it's a strategic roadmap that leads you through strategically setting goals that will get you into that higher level of performance that will provide you with the ability to remain independent into the future and provide returns that will make directors as well as the management team happy. This is Jay Brew. Have a great week.